As a teenager, 17, he was injured in a freak accident playing football, paralyzed. He's built an incredibly inspiring life in spite of the paralysis. He's here to tell us all about it. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is brought to you in part by Newsbreak. In particular, our profile on Newsbreak, the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. You can do a Google search. Just search for Law Enforcement Talk Newsbreak, and you'll get access to it. You can download the app for free, the Newsbreak app. Just go to your app store of your choosing and download it. Be sure to look for Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast and follow us. You'll get great news, great articles, local news, and much more, all on the Newsbreak app, which is 100% free. So download it today. And be sure to follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast and let a friend know. Share the post. Hey, there's an idea. Share it on your social media. And tell everybody about the Newsbreak app, in particular, Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast on the Newsbreak app. Remember, it's free. Calling us from Chicago, Illinois area. We have Brian Swift on the phone. Brian is a gentleman I met on the Clubhouse drop-in social audio chat app, which is free. Look for me and follow me, John J. Wiley at LET Radio Show. By the way, Brian, you got so many accomplishments. You've got such a tremendous story. I want to thank you in advance for coming on the show and talking about a very difficult topic.
John, thank you. It's my pleasure. I enjoy being on Clubhouse with you and listening to you, all your experience, all your insights, and I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of your show.
Before we get into details, Brian was paralyzed in a freak accident. He'll talk about that. He has written a book called The Quad Father. He's host of Positive Perspective podcast. He's also a radio show host on WJOL radio in the Chicago area. I believe the show is called the All Things Inspirational Show. Am I correct?
You are correct, John.
That's a lot to accomplish for anybody.
Well, I've been blessed, and I say that with all sincerity. Ever since my accident, I've just been able to move forward, and it's just a path for me that I don't want to say it's easy, but the direction is easy. Because there's kind of like, in my life, there's two directions, right? You either move forward or you move backwards, because the minute you stop, and we all have to kind of stop and pause and take a breath, and I don't mean that kind of stop, but the minute you stop, you move backwards, and I don't have time to move backwards that often, even though we all do.
We all do. By the way, there's trauma, which quite often is physical, and there's emotional, mental trauma, and in some cases, it's both. And yours, for lack of better words, and I hate that phrase, but there's no other phrase that fits, yours fits into both. It
does, because going from 17 and being, you're independent, right? I mean, I played football, I played basketball, I played baseball, I worked, was going to school. You've kind of got the world by the rear end, as my dad would say. And not that life is perfect, but, in the big picture, it is. And all of a sudden, you're laying there looking up at the sky, and you can't move anything. And that is not just a physical, injury you have to deal with. Actually, it's more of a mental injury if you let it be, and it's more of an emotional injury if you let it be. So
you were playing football, correct?
Yes, it was the day after Christmas. I was out with all my friends, like I have done thousands of times. We were just at a local park playing football, playing tackle like we always did, and I was actually just running with the ball, and I got tackled from behind. And it wasn't a collision. I didn't hit my head. I didn't get knocked out. I just got tackled. And I fell straight down. I didn't fall on my head. Nobody landed on my head, and broke my C5, C6 spinal cord. And it's complete, which means it's severed. So, basically, I'm paralyzed from the neck down initially.
You were 17 years old when this happened.
Exactly. It was, I was senior year of high school. I had one semester left, and on Christmas break, and now I'm, at Christ Hospital, and they're, talking about how they deal with it, which they took a piece of bone out of my hip and fused my vertebrae together, and then on to RIC, which is the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago, which is now the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab.
A lot of what I do, I have points of comparison, parts of my life where I can relate. There have been times I've been hurt, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is going to be really bad, and it's never as bad as I think it's going to be. But to get the news, at 17, by the way, you're paralyzed, and there's no coming back from this. There's no hope of you being able to regain the use of certain parts of your body. How does one deal with that kind of news?
I don't think it registered at first, because they were very straightforward and blunt in the 70s. There was no, this is in the 70s. So think about what we have now compared to the 70s. So there was, you were a statistic. They opened a book basically and said, you're a C5, C6, and you're paralyzed from the neck down. At that level, you'll probably get a little bit of arm movement left, but you won't be able to, your hands won't move. You're not going to be able to, hopefully you can learn to do certain things, but I couldn't even feed myself. So you are truly paralyzed. When I say paralyzed from the neck down, it's paralyzed from the neck down. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't push a wheelchair. I couldn't scratch, my nose. If a fly lands on you, it lands on you, and you couldn't really move your head because you were in this brace that was screwed into your head with 4 bolts and then strapped around your chest and back to stabilize your head.
So many people talk about nowadays that, the angst-filled years of being a teenager. I look back and, yeah, I was a difficult kid at times. I wasn't a bad kid. I was mischievous and unsettled, always looking for the next thrill, those sorts of things. And man, at 17, the highlight of my life was going out in a 1967 Pontiac GTO a friend of mine owned, drinking beer and going up down the strip in Virginia Beach, trying to get women's attention, girls' attention, which we always failed at. But that was the big thing in my life at 17. I can't even begin to comprehend what it's like to go through something this dramatic, this severe at 17. Anytime in your life, but at 17, man, I just can't wrap my hands around this.
Yeah, it's funny, in a sense that I've had a lot of my friends that I'm still friends with, and I've been friends with since grammar school, that were playing with me in this game, because we all played together, and said, if it had to happen to anybody, you were probably the guy that could deal with it. But none of us know if we could deal with things when they come along. But again, if it wasn't for the blessings of having a strong family and having a strong faith and having amazing friends, it's kind of my trinity of life. If my faith, my family, my friends, I didn't get here alone. Nobody gets to where they're at alone. There's been a lot of support and a lot of help, but my key was staying so busy, I almost didn't have time to think about it. And don't get me wrong, I thought about it. I had to think about it. It got in the way, but I continued life as normal as possible. That
part I totally understand. Many of us are dealt unfair hands, vicious things that happen, and we don't expect them. When we return to our conversation with Brian Swift, we're going to learn about what it took to deal with these injuries, to change his perspective, and the things he's doing today. And they are mind-blowing, inspirational stuff. This is Law Enforcement Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
There are more than 700 free podcast episodes of the Law Enforcement Talk radio show. Episodes are converted to a free podcast after airing on radio. You're bound to find a podcast episode that suits you at letradio.com, letradio.com. That's letradio.com.
Did you know that there are people earning $30,000 or more per month from Meta or Facebook? Did you know that you can too? All without breaking the time bank. Learn how to work smarter and not harder on Facebook. Get step-by-step instructions on what to do and what not to do. Start with a free membership. Get details at letbreak.com. letbreak.com. That's letbreak.com.
After a conversation with Brian Swift on the Law Enforcement Show, Brian is a man of many accomplishments. I met him in Clubhouse, the social audio chat app, which is free. You should check it out. Look for me and follow me, John J. Wiley. That's W-I-L-E-Y, or at LET Radio Show. Brian's written the book, The Quad Father. He's host of Positive Perspective Podcast. He's a radio show host on WJOL Radio in Chicago area. This show's called the All Things Inspirational Show. And when you were a teenager, there's really no polite sugarcoating this. You're playing football with friends, tackle, you suffered a severe spinal injury and were left paralyzed.
Correct. I mean, and it was that, I mean, I'm going to say it was that simple. And yet it's not that simple, but, that is what it was. And now I'm laying in the hospital. Now I'm up in the rehabilitation facility. And, you're with other people that are in your situation or worse, which is a really scary thought. And it keeps things, I guess, a bit in perspective because you're up there and you have people caring for you and you have people trying to drive you in the right direction, which is, physical therapy, occupational therapy. They had, classes just, to keep you busy, whether it be you were trying to do art, you were learning how to brush your teeth, how to brush your hair, playing checkers just to try to get your hands and arms to move. So you were busy with that, and just doing a lot of praying that, to see how far that you'd come back.
When you were playing football and the incident occurred, were you aware at that point that this was serious? Were you in pain? Did you notice you were hurt, or did you notice, hey, I can't move?
John, I knew I broke my neck. Like, I knew something. I knew it. Like, I'm laying there, and I remember saying, are my legs caught under me? Because I felt like I was in like almost a fetal position. And they're like, no, Swifty, you're straight out. And I was like, somebody run home and get my mom and dad. And I just knew it. I just didn't know the repercussions because they say, you get a lot of swelling. And when that swelling goes down, they don't know to what degree you might get some movement back or feeling back. So
at what point did you realize, or how much longer did you realize in the hospital, did you get and I hate this term, the verdict or prognosis of what your situation was and how drastic it was?
Oh, probably within a week.
So you're in limbo for a week, thinking maybe, hopefully, praying that this will get better and you can get back to some sort of semblance of a normal life.
Exactly.
And you got the verdict that that's not going to happen.
Right. I mean, they were pretty clear on, you broke it, you severed it, you're a complete injury. We don't know how much you'll get back, but at best, you'll be able to maybe move your arms. That's why you're going to therapy. They leave it open like we don't know, but yet we know this is the best scenario. You're never going to walk again, and you're gonna need help, and you're gonna need the house modified, and you're gonna need an electric wheelchair, and you're gonna, so they throw all that at you.
I was in a room with you in Clubhouse, and you told a story about being in the hospital and that your attitude was not good, and your father said something that was inspiring to you. Was that a pivotal moment for you?
100%. That defines my journey from being 17 to where I'm at today. And I'll keep it short, but It was in January because my birthday's at the end of January, and here I am thinking I'm turning 18 and I'm sitting here. You know, your bowels don't work, so you're having those accidents. I can't even barely, I can't push my chair. I can't feed myself yet. I'm turning 18. Like 18, back in 18 was like that was your free card. That was you kind of you're stepping into more of an adulthood. And I'm sitting in the hospital, so my dad visits, and I was probably in a salty mood. And he comes up and sits down, takes his coat off, and within, I'm not kidding you, probably 7 to 10 minutes, he just stands up, walks over, puts his overcoat on, walks back to me and says, you know what, if you're going to be in this kind of negative mood, I'm not coming up here. He goes, I'm not going to waste my time to come up here to see you in a bad mood. He goes, here it is. He goes, you are responsible for this family. He goes, the way you go is the way we go. You need to be smiling. You need to be up. It's your responsibility to keep this family moving forward, because the way you go is the way this family will go. Took off his overcoat, sat down. We had lunch like nothing happened, and that was it. That was my dad. That really defined how I needed to move forward.
Could you imagine if someone did that nowadays and posted on social media, the cancel culture and how they would just go ballistic? And, I've never met your dad. I don't know your dad. I've only talked to you in an audio format, but I have a vision in my mind of what kind of cat he was, and I'm impressed.
Oh, I love my dad. He's my best friend. He is old school. I mean, I don't think I think the first time I heard him really tell me he loved me was probably when I got hurt. That generation just didn't say those words. They didn't, it was tough love. He was, old Irish Catholic, German, and he worked hard and, taught me how to do fish, taught me how to be a man, taught me how to use tools, taught me how to hunt. Here's a better story real quick. So about a month into it, I'm moving my arms. So I'm able to push myself up and down the hall. And he's like, yeah, because you're not leaving here in an electric chair. So you better, work hard at pushing the chair because you're not getting an electric chair. So, I worked real hard and now I'm able to move my arms and barely feed myself. I could barely get my hands up to my mouth. So one day he brings up my baseball gloves and 4 rubber balls. And this is a true story. He duct tapes the baseball glove onto my hand and pulls me down the hall. And we're probably about 20 feet away. And he goes, we're gonna try to play catch. And he throws a ball and it whizzes over my head. And all of a sudden there's a nurse and she says something to him. And they're like, what they ended up saying was, he really can't move his hand that much. And he throws another ball and it goes right off my forehead. And he throws another ball and it hits me in the chest. Now there's like 2 or 3 nurses around. And they're like, he really can't. And he's like, if he doesn't want to get hit by the ball, he'll move his glove.
Wow.
And, the next one hit the glove. I was able to move the glove a bit. And my only goal was that ball's not going to hit me again. Even if I don't catch it, I'm gonna will this arm and glove to go higher, because I could move it side to side, but I just couldn't really raise it as high as I wanted because of the weight of it, just the weight of a mitt. Took my arm from now I could scratch my forehead, but when you put a mitt on it, that was like putting 100 pounds on it.
I'm visualizing this picture. We're going to take a short break.
We're
going to take a short break. We're talking with Brian Swift. He calls from Chicago area. Brian was paralyzed in a freak accident as a teenager. When we return, we're going to talk about his recuperation, his recovery, his amazing mindset, and the inspirational things he's doing today. This is the Law Enforcement Show. Don't go anywhere. A whole lot more is heading your way. We'll be right back. If you do any business on social media, creating content is one thing. The trick is, how do you turn those people that contact you, that comment on your social media, into consumers? There's a great tool, and you can get more information at letpops.com. That's letpops.com. Best of all, you can get started for free. letpops.com. Check it out today.
Imagine earning an extra $500 to $5,000 a month or more from the comfort of your home or business, all with Facebook. That's right. Meta is paying people just like you every month. Learn how to create another revenue stream from Meta and dramatically increase your reach, all without breaking your own time bank. Sign up for a free membership at letbreak.com. letbreak.com. That's letbreak.com.
Return our conversation with Brian Swift on the Law Enforcement Show. Brian was paralyzed in a freak accident playing football at 17. I met him in Clubhouse, the social audio chat app, which is free. Look for me and follow me, John J. Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y, at LET Radio Show. Also look for two clubs of mine, the LET Radio and Podcast, which is an offshoot of this show, and also the Podcasting 2 Radio Club. It's Podcasting number 2 Radio Club. Brian's written the book, The Quad Father. He's host of Positive Perspective Podcast. He's a radio show host on WJOL Radio in the Chicago area. Show's called the All Things Inspirational Show. Brian, before we went to break, we're talking about another great story involving your dad. You're in the rehabilitation hospital. You're getting a little bit of movement in your hand. He tapes a baseball mitt to your hand and starts throwing rubber balls at you. I'm sitting there thinking two things. The nurses, the staff there, gasping at what he's doing. Like, oh my, that one hit him in the head. Oh my goodness, that ball hit him in the chest, and freaking out, and rightfully so. And the other thing is, it's a similar time frame. The movie Brian's Song. There are very few movies that really get me. That one does. But for some reason, your story and how you talk about your dad in the hospital is reminding me of the scenes with him.
Yes, this was just my dad. Like, maybe part of it was avoidance of, and he just wanted to will and thought, you know what, if I throw a ball at his head, if he doesn't want to get hit, and not that he was trying to hit me in the head. I mean, he was really trying to hit the mitt to probably make me feel better and to get my mind that I can go back and do some of the things I enjoy doing. But that just was the way, and you're right, the staff were gasping. I think the next step would have been calling security to get him out of there. But, I didn't think twice. I understood what he was doing.
As a parent, that had to be just horrifying for him.
You know what? I didn't understand what it was like until I became a parent.
A very quick story, Brian. And again, I don't have a point of comparison to your injuries. I do recall my youngest daughter, she had RSV when she was an infant. She was a newborn. And we took her to the hospital. And I'm working, and I'm still in police uniform. And she's having so much difficulty breathing. And her blood oxygen levels dropping, everything else is going on, and part of me is just absolutely freaking out. The worst of the worst is going to happen. And remind me, I'm in police uniform, and we carried big nightsticks back then. We called them S-Pantoons in Baltimore because of the way we used them. And all of a sudden, I couldn't find the doctor. The doctor is nowhere to be found. My daughter's in distress, and I'm like, I go to this doctor's office, and I'm pounding on the door in full police uniform with my nightstick, yelling at the top of my lungs, you better get out here and take care of my daughter, or there's going to be blank to pay. And I was at that point ready to tear them a new you-know-what.
Yep.
Because I was so afraid. So I'm sitting there thinking, how's your dad keeping his cool? And he had to be terrified for you.
Yeah, I never saw my mom and dad break down. Did they? Yes. I know they did. In front of me, wow. My mom was my faith. My dad was like a rock. Never in all my years did they flail on their faith that I will have a good life. And that was my mom. She was like, things happen for a reason. We don't know what the reason is. I just know you got to move forward and life can be good. And that's what we did. Eventually I got out of the rehab. I got out in pushing myself in a wheelchair. I was able to feed myself. I was able to, brush my teeth. I was able to put on a shirt. Now, when I got out, I can't move my hands. So I have no finger movement, and I have very little tricep movement. because that's part of the paralysis, and you have no balance. So, you can't do a sit-up. So if I lean forward against a table, unless I use my hands to push myself up, I will fall flat on the table. So that's how I left the rehab. And to give you an idea of just moving forward, I left rehab on a Friday. I got home. I went back to high school on Monday. Like, there was no sitting around feeling bad for yourself or moping. I went back to high school. The yellow bus picked me up and dropped me off at high school, and I finished high school. There was no downtime.
You said your parents were Irish and German descent. Were they first generation, second generation? Which one was it?
They're the second generation here. My mom's all Irish. My dad's Irish and English. And, we were very blue collar. We lived in a little suburb. It's called Burbank. It's right outside the city, but it's like city living. Everybody was blue collar. I was probably going to head to the pipe fitters like a lot of my dad's friends were. And that wasn't going to happen now. So now I have to take school serious because I'm, first generation, I'd be the first generation to go to college if I went on to college.
The reason I ask that is, my grandparents were Irish immigrants, and there is a mindset in my family about, I hate to use this term, suck it up, buttercup. We all go through really, really hard things, but you have two choices in life. You can find a way to build a better life, or you can suffer. And really, that's all it comes down to. If I'm breathing in and out, that's all the only choices I had. And everybody, by the way, was kind of like you. We were all blue collar. We're military. We're all poor. None of us had anything. And we weren't aware of the fact that we didn't have anything because that's what everybody had.
That was my neighborhood. We were all in the same boat. And we didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't know we didn't have anything. Why? I came home to food every day. I had clothes on my back. I was going to a parochial high school, St. Lawrence, to get a good education. And my mom was a homemaker till all her kids got in school, and then she worked part-time. My dad worked 2 jobs most of his life. We had 1 car, I remember at first, then 2 cars. I worked through high school in the summers to help be able to drive, to put gas in the car, to those things. So
I'm just looking back, and I compare it today to back then. I know that's not fair, and I don't like when people do that, but there seems to be a mentality nowadays that I'm entitled to things. I'm supposed to have this. I need the latest new phone. I need this computer. I need this. I need internet. I need on-demand. I need all this other stuff. Otherwise, I'm not successful. Brian, I remember working summer jobs so I could afford to buy a pair of Levi jeans and Converse sneakers because they were the thing back then. And if you didn't have them, and by the way, the most important moments of my life, this goes back earlier conversations. When I got my first bicycle for Christmas meant freedom. When I turned 18, that meant freedom. That meant, right. And second was driving. But then freedom of being an adult. Now I can do all this. And you talked earlier, I'm 18 and I'm paralyzed.
Right. And that freedom just was elusive. But what wasn't elusive is trying to mimic what I would be doing if I was on my feet, which was finish school. And now I wasn't going to go into the trades. So most of my friends went to college. So that summer, I get out in May from high school. In June, I start taking a college class at the junior college. So life rolled on. My friends, twice a week, we would walk. I would push my chair 7 blocks to my old high school, and they let me work out there. So we would go up there and work out 2 days a week, and my friends would just grab me out of the chair, throw me on a bench. Okay, start pushing. Strap the bar on me. Start pulling, whatever the machine was. And that year I started college, and 2 years later I graduated from junior college.
That's amazing. We're talking with Brian Swift, and before we take a break, I just got to let you know, Brian is one of these guys that's very, very inspirational, gone through really hard times and found a way to, I don't want to use the term build the life they want or overcome, but create a great life in spite of. He is written a book called The Quad Father. He's host of the Positive Perspective podcast. He's got a radio show on WJOL radio called the All Things Inspirational Show, and he is in a wheelchair, paralyzed. When we return to the conversation, we're talking more about what it took to get from there to where he's at today and what he's doing today. Don't go anywhere. This is Law Enforcement Show. We'll be right back.
What could you do with an extra $500 to $5,000 a month or more? All earned from the comfort of your home or business, and all with Facebook. Meta is paying people just like you every month. They are earning tens of thousands of dollars, and so can you. Learn how to create another revenue stream from Meta and dramatically increase your reach, all without breaking your own time bank. Sign up for a free membership at letbreak.com. letbreak.com. That's letbreak.com.
Be sure to follow the Law Enforcement Talk radio show and podcast on the Newsbreak app. Newsbreak is your #1 local news app for current events, free live news for you and your community. Download the Newsbreak app today for free, and be sure to follow the Law Enforcement Talk radio show and podcast on the Newsbreak app. Return conversation with Brian Swift on the Law Enforcement Show. Brian is paralyzed. I met him in the Clubhouse social audio chat app, which is free, by the way. Look for me and follow me, John J. Wiley, Wiley, or look for @LET Radio Show. You can also look for two clubs of mine, the LET Radio and Podcast, which is an offshoot of this show, and also the Podcasting 2 Radio Club. That's Podcasting #2 Radio Club. Brian's written a book called The Quad Father. He's host of the Positive Perspective podcast, and he has a radio show on WJOL radio in the Chicago area called the All Things Inspirational Show. Now, early in your life, just to recap, you were paralyzed at 17 in a freak accident playing football with friends. And then we talked about the amazing transition into hospital stories with your dad and his mindset, which I think is phenomenal. I'd love to meet this guy. However, there's so many amazing things you're doing today. And I think that part of the conversation that we lose sight on is, in spite of all these things that have happened, Brian, you've built a pretty inspiring life, doing some pretty incredible things. A lot of people that are able-bodied, that have everything else in their life going on, say they can't do, or they're too afraid to even try. How does one go about saying, okay, I'm 17 in a wheelchair to I'm doing all these things?
Wow. It's not an easy process. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But I will tell anybody this, it is so worth it. And it is worth the effort. It is worth the pain. It is worth the journey. So fast forward, I graduated from junior college. And in the meantime, I'm enjoying life. I'm exercising in therapy every day. I'm going to college. I'm dating. I'm dating. I go out to the bars with my friends and go out to parties with my friends. And now I graduate from junior college. I go on to St. Xavier University, and I get my 4-year degree. And while I'm there, I learn how to drive again. So now I'm driving. So another step forward, little wins, right? They're little wins. I'm dating, great win. You're driving again, another win. Now all of a sudden I'm pushing myself 3 miles in the wheelchair for therapy, and I'm lifting more weights. After I graduate from St. Xavier's, this little nun at the school tells me, "Why don't you do this?" And this was something I never dreamed of, because I'm first generation college. I go to law school, and these aren't things that people in my position do. I mean, you just not my social status of blue collar, but even being in a quad or a paraplegic in a wheelchair. So I go, and 3.5 years later, I graduate from DePaul College of Law. While I'm there, I meet a young girl that ends up being my wife. I met her not at DePaul. I met her at St. Xavier, where I used to study. And now, a couple years later, we're married and trying to have kids, can't have kids, want a family. Move fast forward. I've got 3 adopted kids today. I worked in corporate on Michigan Avenue. I worked in the law practice for a little while, then got out, and I went into just the corporate arena, into training, sales management, sales. I loved it. I excelled. I had an office on the 27th floor on Michigan Avenue overlooking the lake. I'm cracking everything I'm not supposed to be doing as a quad. Life is moving ahead. I own we bought a house. My wife's a school teacher, and I'm therapy still. I mean, that was just part of my daily routine. So that was, I worked in corporate for a bunch of years and then decided there's more than this. I got out of corporate and I started doing some of the other things I want to do. I started a nonprofit called SOAR, Swift Outdoor Accessible Recreation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. And what we do is help people with disabilities get back outdoors. Because getting back outdoors is, for me, was one of those mental health, emotional health things I did every day. So that's my fast forward. In the meantime, I write my first book, which is called Up, Getting Up is the Key to Life. I wrote that about 5 years ago. You could find all my books on Amazon. Just look under Brian Swift, S-W-I-F-T. And as I'm doing that, I'm running the nonprofit. In the meantime, I'm coaching. I love athletics so much. I went back and I started coaching, and I'm coaching 7th and 8th graders in football. Then I got an opportunity to coach at high school. So now I'm working and coaching at my old high school. I'm coaching freshman football and sophomore basketball, running the nonprofit, staying busy. I mean, I was so busy, I didn't have time to think. I mean, it was life fast forward.
For me, not spending a lot of time thinking is one of the keys. I've got to be busy because my mind, if I'm not occupied with stuff, my mind reverts to two places. One is the past, and I go over things that are traumatic, harmful, anger, all those things. And the other one's the future, and I get fearful. And it's just not a good place for me to be because the present is where I need to be, and that's where I can do something about.
Exactly. And too much time is just not good, healthy, because you nailed it, John. You revert to the past or the future. And instead of worrying about what I need to do today and tomorrow, and you've got to be so focused on that. And there's not a listener out there. I could tell every listener out there who their worst enemy is.
Oh, my worst enemy is myself, without a doubt.
100%.
And by the way, if anybody ever treated me the way I treated myself, I'd try to bury him. I would try to get rid of him. No one in my life has ever been as harsh to me as I've been.
100%. I never had a manager tell me something I didn't know. I knew it was coming. I'm very hard on myself. My family is like, take a break, smell the roses. You know what you've done. You should appreciate it. And John, I wish I could find this place of contentment, and I haven't been able to. I am full of gratitude. I am so blessed. I got 3 amazing kids. I've been married 32 years.
No small feat.
Now, quads don't get married. Quads don't stay married. Quads don't have families. Quads don't work in corporate. Quads don't. I mean, I can go down the list of what we're not supposed to be able to do. I swam my first triathlon.
We got to have you back to talk about those things because that could take up a whole show in and of itself. I want to direct people to where they can find out more information because you got so much stuff going on. Do you have a website or websites you direct people to?
Sure. They could go to SOAR, SOAR, nonprofit.com, and they can check out a lot about myself, a lot about what the 501c3 does. They could go to Brian, BRIAN, P as in Paul, SWIFT.com. And I have a website there that talks about a lot of the training I do with people, for people. I'm a big John Maxwell fan, certified, and they could go to John Maxwell and find me. I am on Instagram under the Quad Father. I'm on Facebook. They can find me at Brian P. Swift. So I'm on LinkedIn, Brian Swift. I've tried to keep everything simple, so they could go to any of those places to find me. I love helping people. I love helping people win because we live in a world where everybody could win.
That's the absolute truth. If people knew, look, you and I didn't get to where we're at without working hard. I don't want people to think that, hey, you can grab a microphone at a store, you can plug it in, and all of a sudden you're super successful. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of learning that goes on to get to the level you want to be. But it's just, everybody's got to get started somewhere. You made a conscious decision that despite of all these things, in spite of being paralyzed, I'm going to make a life for myself. And I got to congratulate you on being married for all these years, successful. I got to congratulate you on your books, your nonprofit, your Positive Perspective podcast, your radio show on WJOL in Chicago area, the All Things Inspirational show. You really are an inspiring character, and people can find you and listen to you and talk with you in Clubhouse, which I think is pretty cool. People realized this app is free, and they have access to it, and they can talk to people all over the world. They'd be all over it.
Thank you so much, John. Yes, and Clubhouse is an awesome place because, one, that's where you meet people like you that reach out and help so many other people and have helped teach and shared your knowledge and shared your stories. And that's what we're all there to do. I know we're in a lot of rooms together with very like-minded people, and it is an amazing forum. You know, it's as close to being together in a room with a cold beverage as you're going to get.
That's awesome. Brian, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Very much appreciated.
John, thank you so much for having me. I know you do so much for so many people, and to have this opportunity, I'm very blessed to have. And thank you again.
A huge thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast version of the Law Enforcement Talk radio show, by the way, which is a nationally syndicated radio show. And we broadcast on over 115 radio stations across the United States to more than 44 million combined population. If you like our show, there's two simple things you can do. Go to our website, letradio.com. Add your favorites. Check it often. You can find episodes of the show right there. And the second one involves our Facebook page. It's so easy to find great content, including past episodes of the show. And when you see something that you like, that resonates with you, be sure to share it with your friends. We'll be back in just a few days with another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk radio show and podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.